If you've ever lost yourself in a relationship, if you've ever felt like you silenced your voice, dimmed your light, compromised on your needs and your boundaries, if you've ever begged for love or stayed when your heart was breaking, then this video is for you. Here's the thing. We don't choose to self-abandon on purpose. We do so because we've been taught that love means sacrifice, that to be chosen is more important than doing the choosing or even choosing ourselves, that a good woman stays, she tolerates, she gives endlessly into others. And I know this because I lived this experience. I was in an on and off again relationship for nearly 14 years of my life. And throughout the course of this relationship, I completely lost myself. I lost my sense of self. I compromised on my needs, my boundaries, my desires, my self-respect. I tolerated abusive behavior that I never imagined I would even encounter. And I begged for love from someone who could never give that to me. But this journey of experiencing so much pain in love, and not only the pain of that relationship, but the pain of self-abandonment, has been a very profound journey in coming back home to myself and finally claiming my sovereignty and my power. And in this video, I really want to share with you what I learned from healing from self-abandonment and how I healed from a spiritual, emotional, and somatic level, and finally took all parts of myself back from that relationship to become even more free and sovereign and whole. And that is my prayer for you as well. All right, so before we get into how to heal from self-abandonment and how to start choosing yourself again, I want to talk about the ways in which women abandon themselves in relationships. And the first example I want to share is that you place your partner on a pedestal and it seems like the relationship revolves around the needs, desires, and wants of your partner, that they sort of set the agenda. And it becomes increasingly difficult for you to even express your needs, for you to even have a voice or advocate for yourself in the relationship. It just feels like you are constantly shrinking in order to maintain the harmony of the connection and in order to be loved. Another way in which we as women abandon ourselves in love is that we allow our boundaries to be continuously crossed. And oftentimes in relationships, these violations are rather small in the beginning and easier to forgive, until over time it escalates into something bigger and more disrespectful and more painful. And we may even reach a point in the relationship where we ask ourselves, how did we get here? And does this person even respect me? And if we stay in the relationship, we may find ourselves tolerating the disrespect and tolerating this mistreatment. We start to shrink ourselves. We start to contort ourselves in order to be accepted and palatable to this other person. What I noticed in my past relationship is that I was rather quiet. I found myself dimming my light and not sharing as much, not laughing as much, not being authentically me, because I didn't feel like it was received or met, and that I needed to become a version of myself that was smaller and more palatable to this other person. So if you feel like you're not quite yourself around your partner, that is a very telling sign that maybe you may be abandoning yourself for the sake of keeping this connection. And lastly, another way in which women abandon themselves in relationships is that we override our gut instincts. As women, we have such a strong sense of intuition, and we can sense when something is off. But if you find yourself constantly justifying the behavior of your partner or making excuses for them, or performing mental gymnastics to explain why they're behaving and showing up a certain way, then that's a really strong indicator that you may be betraying yourself. Coming back home to yourself after losing yourself in love is a profound and complex journey. And the first step that I would recommend to anyone, and what I personally embraced in my own journey, was to be with myself, to really embrace solitude. And in these moments and in this period of solitude was when I began to really start to hear my own voice again. So I know that it's really easy to jump from one relationship to the next, to look for love and validation in a partner, but oftentimes we end up repeating the same cycles of abandonment, of chasing love, of being with partners who don't really see or value us. And for women, I think it's such a critical time for us to really give ourselves that permission to just be with ourselves fully, to be with the totality of our experience, of our inner world, of our emotions, to get comfortable with who we actually are beneath the masks and the performances that we're conditioned to constantly put on to others. And I like to tell women that in the aftermath of a breakup, that is the winter of your becoming. That is the time where silence speaks, where you can finally hear your own inner voice again, where you can allow healing to take place, not through doing or forcing, but just feeling the grief that you felt in the relationship, the grief of not being fully met, the grief of mistreatment, and the grief of betraying yourself. All right, so the second extremely foundational step in healing from self-abandonment is to heal your nervous system. So oftentimes the reason why we find ourselves in these chaotic, dysfunctional, or even abusive relationships where we have to abandon ourselves is because they mirror the dynamics that we experience as children to our caregivers and our parents in our childhood. And we tend to attach to people who model similar behaviors. And we are taught that in order to be loved, we have to earn it, or we have to sacrifice ourselves. And this happens on a nervous system level as well, not just a psychological level, but deep down within our nervous system and our body, there is this memory that love is supposed to feel this way. And in order to end this pattern of self-abandonment, we have to learn to cultivate safety in ourselves so that we no longer seek safety in these really chaotic relationships. And I also want to emphasize how important it is not to shame yourself. As children, attachment is survival, even if that attachment is unhealthy or toxic or inconsistent. And when we experience ruptures in our attachment to our parents and caregivers as children, that rupture can feel like life or death. It can feel so incredibly destabilizing and unsafe, so that we carry this pattern into our adult relationships where we just want to maintain that connection through all means possible, no matter how painful and dysfunctional that connection is. And so the work here with rewiring your nervous system is to rewire your nervous system to find safety independently. Of course, relationships are important and we are interrelational beings, but it's really important to cultivate a sense of safety outside of a relationship, a sense of safety in our own being and our own solitude as well. So a really crucial step in healing our nervous system and finding safety in our connection to ourselves again is to connect with our felt sense. Our felt sense has so much information and wisdom to share with us. And the more that we are able to tune into the cues of our bodies, the more we're able to understand what's happening on the level of our nervous system, what's happening in our internal state, and how we can better regulate ourselves. So the more that we can cultivate a relationship with our bodies, the more that we can feel safe to feel the emotions that are stored within us and to finally release them. And when we allow ourselves to feel fully, whether it's the grief from our relationships or the grief from our childhood, the more we can move out of these wounds and heal these wounds and come into a place of empowerment and sovereignty. So a simple somatic experiencing practice that I'd love to share with you now is to simply look around the room that you are in. This helps you come out of your thinking mind and start to register into your present moment and into the physical space that you're in. So take a moment with me now to just scan the room. I'm just taking a deep breath and just looking around the room that you're in and just noticing what you're seeing. And the second that your eyes land on something that feels good, that feels nourishing or pleasant, I want you to just take that in. And you can take a deep breath here once you've identified what that thing is. Maybe it's a window, maybe it's a plant inside your home, or a framed photo. And now I want you to just notice what's happening within your body as you take in and really allow that experience to unfold. Are you noticing that your shoulders are relaxing? Are you noticing that you're taking a deeper breath, that your chest feels more expanded? There might be some subtle shifts within your body that signal a less activated state, that signal more harmony, more peace. Everyone talks about how important it is to be alone, to embrace being single, to embrace solitude, but not everyone talks about how important it is to do this at the capacity of your nervous system. So oftentimes when we experience a rupture in our attachment to our parents or our caregivers as children, a similar type of rupture as an adult, in the form of a breakup, in the form of feeling that disconnection from a partner, can feel really devastating and overwhelming to our nervous system. So that's why it's so important to resource. Resourcing is fuel for our nervous system. It's fuel for our bodies to feel safe, even in the midst of discomfort, even in the midst of feeling really triggered by separation and disconnection. And so what I like to tell people to do is to practice resourcing as much as you can. So you can do the exercise that I shared earlier, which is just coming back into your body and scanning the room. Or you can also do things like yoga, meditation, any sort of physical movement that brings you out of your head and into your body that feels soothing, that feels nourishing for your body and your soul. And you can also practice resourcing through the form of self-touch, maybe just caressing yourself and holding yourself and just telling yourself, I'm here with you. I'm here with you, even if you're afraid, even if this aloneness feels terrifying right now, I'm with you. And just allow that feeling to just really settle in from a somatic level. Allow that safety to be established within your body. Really important part of my healing journey from self-abandonment was reconnecting with my sense of aliveness outside of the relationship. And I want to share a quote from this book called Getting the Love That You Want. And it talks a lot about what's actually happening in relationships from a psychological perspective, from the level of our psyche. Above all else, we seek the sensation of feeling fully alive that is triggered when we experience connecting. To us, it is more than a psychological term, as all things are interconnected. So are we. It is our nature to be connected. This responsibility is not distributed uniformly among your friends and family. No, indeed, your old brain is seeking one particular person to be the primary source of your salvation, the person with whom you fell in love. That person is the conduit for re-experiencing full aliveness and joy, or not. Outside of our awareness, we enter marriage with this expectation that our partners will magically restore this original state of connecting. It is as if they hold the key to long ago kingdom, and all we must do is persuade them to unlock the door. So, with that being said, I want to just invite you to just explore what would it feel like to unlock the door to your own kingdom of aliveness. What are the things, what are the experiences, the activities that really bring you to that heightened state of aliveness, of joy, of exuberance, of excitement, of passion and zeal? And for me, as I was leaving my past relationship and getting in touch with the things that really lit me up, they were things like dancing, like writing, like being in nature, living in nature, being with really close friends and cultivating those relationships, cultivating stronger relationships with my family. So I invite you to really romance your life, to connect with your eros, your aliveness, whether that's dancing or singing or being in nature or being with close friends or trying something new that you've never done before but is exhilarating and lights up something within you. Maybe that's traveling. There's so many things that we can do that bring that sense of aliveness within ourselves without having to rely on a partner, without having to rely on a relationship. And lastly, a way to heal from self-abandonment is to release the fantasy. As women, we are taught to kind of get enamored by this fantasy of relationships being this panacea, of solving all of our problems and bringing to us all of the love and the pleasure and the joy that we could ever dream of. And in turn, we also start to romanticize and attach to the fantasies of our relationships and our partners, and this becomes our blind spot. It prevents us from seeing clearly. It prevents us from seeing that other person clearly because we are so committed to keeping this fantasy alive. And we're so conditioned to believe in these fantasies of partnership and love and marriage and family. And not to say that these aren't wonderful things and things that are noble to desire, but it can prevent us from seeing the truth of a relationship, the truth of another person, the truth of what we are actually experiencing and how we may be betraying ourselves. So releasing that fantasy and cultivating a vision of yourself and your life that is rooted in truth, the truth of who you are, the truth of what you deserve, the truth of what your heart is yearning and longing for. All right, so that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Before I leave you, I just want to share one final message, and that is to please listen to yourself. If you feel like something is off, if you feel like you're losing yourself in a relationship, if you feel like your light is not shining as brightly as it once did, then please listen to that and to choose yourself, because you deserve all of the love in the world, but it needs to start with your own love. I'm sending you so much love and support. I'll see you in my next video. Take care.